Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Basta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Oz with the overalls. Well, no overalls today. He's kind of got like a windbreaker jacket, but he's got that hat on, everybody. He's on the ones and twos. Fam. Okay, fam. We got a long show today. The weekend was crazy. They had the Friday weekend dump. And you thought it would be light packing, but no, we just come swimming into a lot of information. We're going to have a show tomorrow too, correct?
Yes.
So whatever we don't get to today, we'll get to tomorrow. Fam, I know you know this, but just in case you don't, newspaper guy, tomorrow I want to talk about Pelosi and Zelensky. There's some more to it. Pretty much christening that money that's going to be asked by Joe Biden, that $30 million, her and Adam Schifferbrains. 33. But how many billions since we started this whole thing?
33 billion, yeah. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And so tomorrow we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad all around. We had to really talk today about more of what's happening here. And I think we're headed towards some really dark times for journalism, for anybody that is dissenting on the truth. Yesterday, my phone just stopped working all day. It just completely stopped working for no reason whatsoever. And I wasn't able to really connect because I have a lot, like I get, Telegram to me is like something I'm using a lot now. Mm-hmm. And like, it was like crazy. And I had to like forcibly take a day off because I'm always like reading stuff. Mm-hmm. And it like forced me to take a day off, but it was really strange how that happened. And it was just randomly like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's just, I don't know. We don't know what happened. So that's the answer I got today. But it's fixed now, I guess. And so, yeah, this is, we're descending into full on fascism, and I don't say that lightly. So,
and then, yeah, it's there. It's scary times. I mean, geez, I was on the RBN Anti-Imperialist Summit this week. I got to do two shows, one with the MCS Network on Friday. And then again on Saturday, I was actually on with Jimmy Dore. And then I kind of transitioned into Caleb Maupin and Tara Reid. So it was awesome and stuff like that. But, Caleb, fam, he's got his PayPal yanked. We talked about it last week. It's nuts. Consortium News, all these other people, Mint Press. It's just friggin' nuts. It's like, I keep telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, keep my bedroom there for me just in case I got to come home, because I'm so afraid they're going to find ways to just shut down every single bit of dissenting voices, fam. And, we've been on that target before. We've been demonetized now for going on 15, 16 months. I mean, from YouTube. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, that's not like saying, okay, we don't want to advertise on your channel. That's removing the mechanism of where donors, individuals, for you guys to tip us directly through YouTube. And that is fascism. Only one voice, and that's the state's voice. But at least, fam, now the state's voice is going to be determined, and who else can speak, by somebody who's really good in karaoke and can sing songs.
Fam?
Yes?
Who?
Gina Franksowitz or whatever her name is and stuff.
Is she even that good? I feel like she's an annoying person that always just sings straight up Disney songs during karaoke and like ruins the mood.
Yeah.
Like, because she can only sing Disney songs. I don't know. That woman's scary. I didn't put up the meme, but there was this character from Harry Potter, and she looks just like it. So they just plastered her face on that character, and literally it's just scary how art imitates life, life imitates art. But of course, along with the censorship that's happening on all of us right now, especially all of us, the only people getting censored right now are the people that are pushing back against the current narrative. And along with that, of course, is the funding towards Ukraine, right? The $33 billion that we're going to talk about more tomorrow, that Nancy Pelosi went to Kiev when her whole, as Pasta pointed out in his tweet, when her whole district and city is literally in extreme poverty. People are moving to Florida from California because they can't stand the state that California is in. Places that, like San Francisco, that used to be places that I would love to be in, and a lot of us would love to be in, have turned into complete and total disasters. Yet Ukraine is getting a lot of money, and that's not even it, fam. They're going to be getting more because this congressman is currently pushing for a new AUMF, okay, for Ukraine. And that is insane. We haven't seen them push for this for a long time, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and read exactly what this is, because this is crazy to me. I don't know if you guys caught this, but this is directly from his website, and it's Congressman Kinzinger. And he was also the one that years ago, I believe it was in 2012, so like a decade ago or so, he was advocating for U.S. intervention against Assad for the supposed chemical attacks used in the region in Syria. And, you know, he was showing pictures of children and all of that. You guys can go back and see him those years ago. But now he is on the floor advocating for an AUMF for specifically Ukraine. And this was as of yesterday, Washington, D.C., May 1st. Today, Congressman Adam Kinzinger, a Republican of Illinois, introduced or announced his introduction of a joint resolution that would authorize the use of U.S. armed forces to defend the territorial integrity of Ukraine in the event that Vladimir Putin escalates his unjust war against our democratic allies. This authorization for use of military force to defend America's allies resolution of 2022, or the AUMF of 2022, would authorize the President of the United States to utilize our forces to respond to a scenario in which the Russian Federation uses chemicals, biological, or nuclear weapons against Ukraine. If you guys recall, I talked about how the Russians already laid out how the United States was going to falsely accuse them of using any of these three things, the biological, chemical, or nuclear weapons, two of which they do not have, according to them, and that they have zero intention of using anything of those two. The only time they have said they would reciprocate is if, of course, there was an aggression by the U.S. or the West to really attack Russia, then they would reciprocate. But they have specifically said time and time again they have zero intention of using any chemical or biological weapons at all. And this Kinzinger, this congressman, just goes to show you that, you know, both Republicans and Democrats are warmongers when it comes to this, and the vast majority of Congress is on the same page, as we just saw with the previous squat votes to fund Ukraine. And he continued on slide 7. After World War II, America made our position clear. Our commitment to freedom puts autocrats on the defense and strengthens democracies around the world. And then he talks about tyrants like Vladimir Putin, who's exploited vulnerabilities. And now that this is an opportunity to reaffirm freedom, support to freedom-seeking people. So, and again, standing up to authoritarianism. So he apparently spoke to Anthony Blinken, and they're so concerned about Putin's potential use of chemical weapons. And so he's advocating that the United States needs to stand up to this by having this AUMF, right? And they want to make sure that Russia is, quote, held accountable for any and all violations to international law, as if the United States and NATO haven't violated international law with this whole thing, as if Russia wasn't provoked, as if this is just, you know, Putin being a tyrant. What about the authoritarianism that is currently enveloping not the United States government, and then of course is being passed on to its citizens via censorship and completely trashing any sort of dissent? And then they talk about the poor Ukrainians and et cetera. And he says at the very end, we must take action to put a stop to these atrocities. And you've heard a lot of this from these people, like, we're going to do everything we can to stop Putin. If Putin does anything, we're going to go down, we're going to completely go after them. And so he said he's introducing the AUMF as a clear red line so they can take appropriate action when, if, should Russia use these chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons. And so, he also says what Biden said, which is what exactly the language that I'm talking about. Putin must be stopped, right? And they're going to do anything, as he quotes here. The greatest, the commander-in-chief to the world's greatest military should have the authority and means to take the necessary actions to do so. So with this, they're basically eliciting this idea that if they plant a false flag, I'm just going to say it. If the United States plants a false flag, accuses Russia of using chemical and biological weapons, which they've already been trying to do, then they're going to use that flag to say Russia did it, even if Russia didn't do it, to then authorize them to use force against Russia. And the problem with that is that could start a literal nuclear war, could start a literal biological war, a war where you have this back and forth. And Russia is not bluffing. Russia is not going to stop this just and let Ukraine become a part of NATO. Russia isn't going to stop allow the continued expansion of NATO into the East, because this is, to Russia, this is like they're taking on the entire West. This is like a stand, and if they don't have this, they're willing to loot. They're willing to go to war for this, and they're not bluffing. So to me, this is just yet another red button that the U.S. is pushing. And it could literally escalate us into a full-on nuclear war. And by the way, Poland is already reportedly getting involved. And that, of course, is extremely dangerous if we're trying to avoid any sort of war.
Yeah. I mean, Kinzinger, not to be confused with Kissinger, right? Like, the guy's a mini McCain. He really is. And, he's the one who even went after Rachel Blevins, too, just because she's an RT. She was an RT America, contributor, and she was on Boom Bust and whatnot. I mean, this guy is a little bit crazy, and it's almost like these particular like Democrats or Republicans have what we believe is like this kind of Cold War anti-Russia ideology, but it really isn't an ideology. It's more of a representation of the manufacturers, the weapons manufacturers they work for. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it is no surprise that this guy is doing that. You know what I'm saying? And he is a congressman from Illinois, of course. But I mean, it's just interesting when you hear all these people talk. I'm surprised, fam, that he hasn't called the Russians orcs yet, right? Or we haven't caught him saying that. This guy is anti-Russia as could be. And he's there for one reason, to be representations for the weapons manufacturers. So just deal with it. I mean, that's all we have. Everybody is bought. You see what's going on. Matt Orfalia made the video of every single person going on weapons going on the mainstream media. Weapons. So more the same from this guy. And this person is going to, justify when, Congress asked for $33 billion, right? It's coming, fam, because we have guys like this in Congress.
Yeah, and what really scares me the most is that I think this is going to happen because the United States is also taking their last stand against, against Russia via Ukraine, and so they're going to do everything they can to not lose control of this, to make it look like they're winning, and this is extremely risky because, like I said, Russia isn't bluffing, and Russia already knows. They already laid out. We already went over like a week ago or more as to how Russia laid it out, like what they're going to accuse them of. And lo and behold, here we go.
Yeah. It's the spin doctors, right? The spin doctors will come right in there, try to spin this into propaganda. Yeah, we might have lost this, spent this much money, but guess what, fam? We've weakened Russia militarily wise and economically. We choked them out because if you look into the papers here, fam, it will say more things that I don't want to look for it right now, but it's like they're still kind of claiming that they're hurting Russia economically when Russia's holding all the cards. They have all the resources. They've now commodified their dollar, switching the ruble, making sure that it is backed in gold across the board. And if you want their product, you got to pay in ruble. They're holding all the cards here. And American people just need to wake up. I mean, you want to send all this money over to the Ukraine? Get out of here. There's people starving in the streets here.
Not to mention that they're asking to give Biden unilaterally the power to send as much funds as necessary, and to also send as many weapons and as much military aid, and use Ukraine to say, well, this is because we're helping Ukraine. So not only does Biden have the unilateral power now to send as many funds as he desires or as the State Department desires, because let's be real here, Biden isn't in charge, to Ukraine. Now they have the power to declare war on Russia, essentially, with these actions that they're taking to say that Russia attacked them by any of these means, which Russia has already said they're not going to do. So if you have any accusation against Russia that they're using these attacks, these hungry war criminals are going to come in and be like, see, they used it, they did it, we need to go after them. And so now you have what could potentially be a gigantic catastrophe. And that is just it's insane. But that's where we're at right now. And by the way, there was a video he did, and he went and testified and spoke with Blinken, and you guys can watch it. So we're going to see some of it. We're going to stop it halfway through, and then we're going to continue. It's like a 4-minute video. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this exchange was.
Clear to me that Ukraine, and I think you've said this too, sir, Ukraine is fighting for all of us. We have to arm them because they are fighting for all of us. And I think it's important for people to remember, if Ukraine falls, and I think we're doing the right thing by stressing our commitment to NATO territory, and I actually really do believe that if Vladimir Putin moves in on NATO territory, he would be met with a devastating response. But I think it's important for people to remember, there's a lot of real estate still that's not in Ukraine, that's not part of NATO. And that's why it's important right now for us to make sure that Vladimir Putin can go no further. And I hope he loses some of his occupied territories. Just a couple of legitimate questions that I want to know the answer to, believe it or not. I want to ask first off about a month ago, it was reported that there might have been the use of chemical weapons in Ukraine. I wondered if you had an update on that in terms of what we know.
Thank you. And some of this may be more appropriate to take on in a different setting, but having said that, this is something we're looking at very, very carefully. I don't believe that we've been able to verify that use, but I want to come back to you. There are different kinds of chemical agents that could be in play, including riot control agents that would be prohibited, that kind of thing. But in terms of the use of a chemical weapon, I think what I can say here is that we've not yet verified the use, but it's something that we're very, very much focused on.
Thank you. Next question is the use of, for American aid, to the extent we can answer this in this setting, what is the prohibition? What is the reason for not basically flying American aid directly into Ukraine versus through proxies? Is it an international law issue? Is it a safety issue? Is it infrastructure? I'm curious if you can answer that.
I think first the most important thing is the aid is getting in,
right,
getting in record time. It used to be, for example, under presidential drawdowns, it would often be weeks between the time the president made a drawdown decision and the aid got into the hands of those who needed it. I was just there, as you know, including at the staging site for where some of this aid is getting in, and it's down to, in some cases, 72 hours. That's how rapidly it's getting in. So I don't think we have an issue right now with the assistance not only being provided, but actually getting to where it needs to get. Once it gets to the border and it's handed over to the Ukrainians, they're the ones, of course, who are getting it where it needs to go. They know this a lot better than we do, and they've been extremely effective in making sure that these supplies could get where it needs to get.
And let me ask you about the Air Force side of things. I believe one of the programs we used to do through the Air National Guard, I'm a member of the Air National Guard, we would pair with Ukrainian Air Force, we'd do fake fights, train each other, we'd train them to fly. Has there been any consideration to restoring those programs, bringing Ukrainian pilots potentially to American Air Force bases to learn to fly? Because, I mean, yes, it takes a long time to train a pilot, it does, because we're so good, but it takes a long time to train a pilot, but there's no time like now to start. So I wanted to ask you about that.
I agree with the general proposition, and indeed we are moving forward on training, because here's one of the challenges. Some of the systems that the Ukrainians would like to have that could be effective in repelling the Russian aggression and defending the country are systems that they're not trained on, and it does take some time. The Pentagon, and I think Secretary Austin referred to this the other day, is engaged in some training. So are other allies and partners in Europe. I can't address that specific program. The Pentagon would have to address that, but generically, yes, we're engaged in training.
And I'll just say to wrap up, I think, it takes a lot to change an army from Warsaw equipment basically to NATO equipment. I think with what we're seeing with our allies and donating some of the old Soviet equipment is actually helping to accelerate that process to switch over to NATO standards. So thank you, Mr. Secretary, and I'll yield back.
Thank you.
Pam, can we go fight for each other? Can we go fight for Ukraine? They're really doing this shit.
Yeah, I mean, that was very nauseating to watch how war hungry this man is. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen somebody that just war hungry. And one of the things I want to point out is he's asking why doesn't the U.S. go and train Ukrainian fighters? They're already doing that under the guise of NATO, and Russia has said many times that they see that as a violation. They see that the U.S. is really fighting Russia, not Ukraine, because that the U.S. is largely pushing and funding and doing all this, of course, and then whatever else you have left in Ukraine are not Nazis that they're trying to whitewash and say they're not Nazis. And so what like the answer to his question is, why isn't this happening? Well, because Russia would say you're declaring war on us, and so we have to respond. That's why it's not happening, you absolute clown. Like, why else do you think it's not happening? The US would have done that a long time ago. But they've at least been as measured, some people in the State Department, to not start full-on World War III, because the moment they have like a more, you declare some sort, the Russians can say you're declaring war on us, they're gonna do something about it. They're going to defend not just Russia, but this stand up against this aggression that they perceive is being waged against them. And if you look at some of the things that the pro-Ukrainian hacks on Twitter are sharing, some of them are extremely racist. Wired posted one where they have the Ukrainians fighting, and it's a bunch of like orc-looking, gargoyle-looking Russians. And I mean, it doesn't get more racist than that. And these are all the liberals that constantly talk about everybody being a white supremacist. I mean, it's just ridiculous now. And this guy is begging for us to start World War III. He's like begging for it. And because at the end of the day, they know they'll be fine. They know, the vast majority of people who will suffer will be the civilians on both ends. And this is exactly what is just an absolute nightmare. I mean, I don't know if you have anything else to say about that exchange, Basta, but I thought he was just begging for war.
Well, for one, I don't know where my lights just started going off behind me like crazy. I think the CIA is really trying to mess me up over here. But the whole fight for Ukraine, let's go fight for each other. This is a message that's echoed out once again. I'd really like to intercept that email that they all get to get on the same page. When I saw Cenk Uygur yelling it out the other day, come on, let's go fight for each other. Let's go fight for Ukraine. I was like, what the hell? Like, are you that stupid? But then I heard, Nancy Pelosi saying it. It's all over the mainstream media. The AP's writing, a fight for each other is a fight for Ukraine is a fight for us. Like, are you freaking kidding me? And this guy, same thing. This is a fight for everyone. This is a fight for us. Like, no, it's not. And I can't believe people in his district aren't at his office right now today going, are you friggin' high? Well, I don't know his district, but I don't know if he has any working class people in his district. But if there's any working class people, to be like, what are you doing? You're wanting to send, billions of dollars, and we have all these problems at home? What are you kidding me? We don't give a shit about Ukraine. And not to mention, we're not stupid. We know you caused the problem in the first place. But I mean, the weapons that get there, fam, half of them are destroyed. Don't even get into the right hands. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, they don't even get into the,
you know whose hands they end up in? They end up in the Russians' hands. And the Russians are constantly posting videos on Telegram like,
yes,
thanks for sending us your weapons. We just got a hold of them. Thank you so much. And by the way, the aid never gets to these civilians, to these actual Ukrainian civilians that are stuck in this conflict. It doesn't get to them at all. So really, their funding is going to the Azov battalion. It's going to these Nazis who then are losing it to the Russians. That's where all this money is going. It's a complete joke, is the reality.
Yeah. And the last thing I have to say, it's one thing I think you can get away. Putin's already said, the Russian defense ministries already said, we don't like the fact that you're going in there and you're aiding these people. We know that Blackwater was training these guys. The CIA trained part of the SBU. It's ridiculous. And, that Dan Cohen video with the SBU is terrifying. But now you want to take troops from Ukraine, bring them into NATO territories, train them, and then now this guy is full blown ready to go to war with Russia. Yeah. And it's crazy scary. But this is what we got, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we got. And if we want to fight for each other, we'll fight back against this narrative because it's bullshit. That's how we
And
fight for each other.
And somebody called out the, Code Pink and Answer Coalition because they haven't been vocal. They've been saying, oh, stop Russian aggression or stop, blah, blah, blah. But they haven't had a full on like anti-war, like let's stop US and NATO aggression, because that's what's really happening here. If you're not addressing that, you're not addressing the whole thing. Yep. You're not addressing the whole thing. You're still playing ball. You're still sort of lightly playing footsie with the State Department. The only reason Putin is being laid out to be the second coming of Hitler is because we are supporting literal Nazis. And so they have to make Putin the Nazi, which is, it is just a CIA trick. They call their enemy what they are. Like they try to paint their enemy as to what they're doing. It's projection 101. This is what's happening here. This is constantly happening. And so, again, we need people to really wake up, as Potts has said, and stand up to this aggression by NATO and the West and the United States, of course, leading the charge because they're mad that they're losing this hold. And this is going to take us not just into war, perhaps it's taking us into economic disaster. The economy is not doing well in the United States. It is absolutely just falling flat, face flat. And with the food shortages and the burning of these food plants and the chicken, there's a factory in Georgia that was completely has stopped production of that was, so it had the most production of, I think it was the largest or second largest production of chicken, and that is like not happening anymore. So there are times ahead, guys, that it's really bad economic wise.
It's going to get dark. It's going to get real dark. I'm going to read some super rays real quick. Fam, is that good? Do you have anything else about that section you want to get to?
No. We'll just go into the next section.
Oh, you want to go right into the next section? Let me, as you talk about the title.
You can read the super ray.
Okay. I'm going to fix my lights on the wall over there. I have to walk there real quick. Trey Wright says, Trevor Noah is an establishment hack. While watching his clips on Anarchy in the Morning, I got so pissed off that I made a video. Assange is in jail and he's talking about us having freedom of press. Bitch, get the hell out of here. That's why I put the TFOH, right? Fuck out of here. End of rant. Love you both. I have a tweet. Go share it, Trev. If you haven't shared it, I think you already did. But and I'd love to see your video, so I'll check that out later today. Did I beat Trey in today? Says game.film. No, you did not. Trey got here first. Maybe on the regular thing, you might have beat him, but he got in the Super Ray first. So maybe try to beat him next time. But thank you so much, game.film, for coming along. Italian Stallion, how you doing? I'm right here, Italian Stallion, right over there. You guys are right about Ukraine. It's scary. I got booted from a Ukraine Reddit group for calling Azov Nazis. They said I was pushing Azov misinformation. Nazis definitely influenced the country. Yeah, you're not pushing their information, and that's what they want. So good for you, Italian Stallion. I will never boot you. They can go to hell.
Wow. Yeah. That's insane. Like, I mean, where these liberals went from calling everyone a Nazi to defending them, defending real Nazis, right? Wow. So just going right along with this really dark era that we're going into, and it's unfortunate that we have to share the news, right? Because we wish it wasn't like this. We wish we could report happy news, like, oh, yay, like the economy's doing great. People are, getting the jobs they want, everything's good. No, that's unfortunately not what we can report right now. So there are dark times ahead, guys, because the State Department has increased its attacks on real journalism and real journalists and real truth tellers and real people just attacking the narrative that is entirely false. And we know this is entirely false. I mean, I put up a tweet the other day. Was it yesterday? Probably was yesterday. 98% or more of what we have been taught our whole entire lives is an entire lie. Everything we've been taught, from politics to economics to science to medicine to literally history to any sort of deep dive into war and our past history with war. Everything is a lie. The problem is that people's lives revolve around those lies, so they have to protect those lies now. And so it becomes their obsession for a lot of people to protect these lies, to make sure that whatever they believe in is reality, because if it's not, then their whole world falls apart. And so that is worse to them than admitting that they've been duped. And so what we're seeing is a massive cognitive dissonance and a massive brainwashing of people that didn't start with this conflict. We could go back all the way to Trump derangement syndrome and then talk about the election and then the pandemic. And now we're here. It's the process. And they've done it because they've made people think that this is their idea. That is their idea to, ask for more surveillance, to ask for more security, which is not security at all, to ask for less freedoms and to give up their rights. They make you call for it. And that is a very manipulative and psychological type of warfare that we're enduring. So Consortium News, which has for years now been putting out, news that is anti-war, anti-establishment, and they're like, what is it, like the third person, I think, because we had Mint Press, you had Caleb Maupin, you have Consortium News now, which the PayPal just decided to completely cancel on them. And we're going to put their link to their article in the description, but it is right here. If you guys go check out Consortium News, they wrote an article just specifically talking about this thing, and they really laid it out, because if you read this is scary, because it could happen to us tomorrow. It could happen to us at any time. And I'm expecting that to happen to us. So here it is. PayPal cancels Consortium News' account, and it may seize their balance. So they say the online payment system gave no warning or reason why Consortium News account has been permanently limited. PayPal indicated that only if applicable will the balance be returned. And Joe Gloria wrote an article, and they didn't get any notice or anything, no explanation. This is what's been happening. And Consortium News is launching its spring fund drive. It has lost one of its most important ways for viewers and readers to show this report through donations. Clicking on the yellow PayPal donate button to their homepage now yields this message. As you guys can see, this organization is currently ineligible to receive donations, and that's what it says when you click on their PayPal. And the email says you can't use PayPal anymore. We noticed activity in your account that's inconsistent with our user agreement, and we no longer offer you PayPal services because of potential risk exposure. We've permanently limited your account. You'll no longer be able to use the account for any transactions. If the message is that any money in your PayPal balance will be held up for up to 180 days, after which, if applicable, we'll email you with information on how to withdraw your remaining money. So
we're going to pretty much rob you, fam, and we'll let you know if we change our mind.
Right. It's up to them, I guess. And as you guys, if you go to slide 15, as you can see that the PayPal account page itself on theirs shows the same thing and has the same message. And it says at the bottom, we value a safe community for our customers to do business. We notice activity in your account that's inconsistent. I mean, what the hell exactly is unsafe about reporting news? Like, I mean, unless you're part of, the system that doesn't want news reported, then yeah, I guess that's unsafe for you. But really, this is just an attack on truth, an attack on journalism. It's disgusting. I can't believe I'm reading this right now. I am, we warned about this. We've been talking about this, about why free speech and standing up for Julian Assange is so important. But now we're getting to the epicenter, I think, of why we've been talking about this for so long, right? Yeah. And in the article, I'll just finish up the article, fam, and then we can talk about it. In the article, there was just they said there was no any other explanation. A PayPal customer service agent confirmed in a telephone call on Sunday that the back office gave no specific reason for permanently limiting Consortium News' account other than an investigation and review of Consortium News history found some potential risk associated with the account. And it's not specified by the back office what potential risk means. The agent said it had something to do with the history of this account. Asked whether any agency, government or private, or any individual had complained to PayPal about Consortium News, the customer service agent replied, I don't see any existing case. The agent could not explain why Consortium News was not given notice or any due process, but promised to ask the back office to contact them to explain. So regarding the $9,348.14 balance in their accounts, the agent said that after the review, they would decide if they return it. If there was a violation, she said it's possible the money would be kept as damages to PayPal. So they're literally potentially stealing it from them. And it says violations under the restricted activities of the user agreement include providing false, inaccurate, and misleading information to PayPal, other PayPal customers, or third parties. Given the current political climate, it is more than conceivable that PayPal is reacting to Consortium News' coverage of the war in Ukraine, which is not in line with the dominant narrative that is being increasingly enforced. Last week, PayPal also froze the account of alternative news site Mint Press News. And of course, the individuals like Caleb Maupin, others that have been targeted by PayPal, I know, are Ryan Christian, Whitney Webb. Yeah. They've been attacked by Patreon. So Patreon's not safe. PayPal's not safe. Nothing is safe, essentially. That's where we're at.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned Ryan. I have it written down in my notes. Ryan Christian, he went through this several years ago. And it was like, I remember what happened. Nobody was making a big deal about it then. It's like, dude, dark days are coming. Here we are again. And I think it was Shauna Burley made a great tweet today about talking about the fact that is like, very similar to what you're talking about, how they convince you to kind of push for the censorship, right? You're the virtuous one. And it's a psychological op, really, that kind of goes and tickles the ego of sorts, fam, right? They tickle that ego, and they find that people who have this kind of like hidden sense of narcissism, what I'm saying? Like this narcissism of sorts, that they got to be the virtuous ones and they got to be the savior, they got to be the knights, you know what I'm saying? And that you should shut that person down because what that person is saying is bad, you know what I'm saying? We're the virtuous ones without thinking about the nuances about how important it is to have freedom of speech, especially when it comes to people you totally disagree with, right? That's speech you want to fight with for more than anything, because at one time, one day, the chickens are going to come home to roost and they're going to go after you. And you might think that, you're on the team right now that's getting to, censor, or, you're along with the ideology of the people who are doing this censoring to other people that are different than you, but it's going to come back on you no matter what. It's going to come back to you. And when you've opened up a Pandora's shit box and you allow this censorship and you actually cheer for it, and there's so many people, fam. How many people do we see cheering this stuff on when it happens? Up, this person got taken down. Let's have 2 drinks today when you got taken down, right? It's like you're cheering on freaking censorship. But I mean, this is where we're at, and it's only going to get darker from now on. I mean, this should be illegal what they're doing. And don't tell me it's a private company, whatnot, cutting off people's finances and stuff, cutting off their people's ability to eat because you don't like what they have to say.
The intelligence apparatus has taken fascism and rebranded it to a segment of the population that was supposedly largely anti-fascist, but they've rebranded it as disinformation, as combating something for democracy. And as our good friend Fidel Castro said,
exactly,
they're calling fascism, it's fascism, but it's going to be called democracy. And so they've rebranded this fascism as democracy. And now these people are eating it up, thinking that it's democracy. They're so brainwashed that they're promoting full-on fascism, and they're becoming fascists themselves. And the worst part is they're not seeing it, because, as you said, they think they're the virtuous ones, and they think they're right. And they're cheering this on as it's happening to people, because they say, well, they're spreading misinformation about Ukraine, and Ukraine's a sovereign country, and Ukraine this and that. And, simultaneously, you have the United States continuing to fund Israel, that has caused a complete and total dehumanization of Palestinians, continues to bomb them. You have they're funding and working with Saudi Arabia that continues to dehumanize and kill Yemeni people. You have the death and destruction of the Yemeni people, the Palestinian people, what happened in Libya, what's happened throughout West Asia, and you have all of that happening, but somehow Ukraine is now the thing you are supposed to be supporting, and they don't realize how they become tools of oppression. And it's sad, yeah, but it's scary, because these are the people that we are opposing, and these are the people that have claimed to be the virtuous ones. It's almost like the religious zealots, and
Yeah.
they're fighting, this jihad against what they claim is some sort of, dictator and Russian assets and all of that.
Yeah, but let's also be honest too, fam. They're not anti-fascist. They never were anti-fascist because they didn't even know what the definition of fascism was. They equated fascism to racism. You know what I'm saying? And that's, along with that becomes beating down your neighbor who's the racist. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, the old people from the Midwest and all these other people, they're racist. And, you know what I'm saying? They're not allies and we need to teach them how to be allies and we have to shut up their speech, whatnot and stuff. But they don't understand what fascism really is. And fascism is that merger between government and state. And now they are completely joined at the hip, especially when it comes to our media, which is not media. It's just nothing more than propaganda. So, this is the correct.
They don't even get to claim pasta.
No.
They don't get to claim that they're anti-racist either, because the level of unhinged attacks against Russians and the depiction of them as a lesser than human, to me, is racist. So,
I know. They don't
at the end of the day,
yeah.
And it's just for virtue signaling that they've claimed to be anti-racist, because they're really, when it comes down to it, they're not. Because they're employing the same people and the same mechanisms that use racism to divide people and to continue that. They weaponize racism in order to get people on their side, but really they're not anti-racist at all. They
absolutely
just like
that's
to
another thing.
Virtue signal about being racist, anti-racist.
Because the most racist thing we can do as a nation is go around and bomb indigenous countries. Indigenous people in their own homeland, and yet they don't know about that too. So you're absolutely right there too as well, fam. So really, to tell you the truth, they're sheep. They're sheep. That's all they are. They're being herded right off the cliff. They're worried about the wolf, and yet the shepherd's going to kill them. So it is sad and it's scary too as well, because at this point, this has been a great purge, right? They purged RT as much as they could. Well, they didn't purge it completely, but they really knocked some holes in it, taking it off YouTube and all this other BS. And, RT America has closed down their whole situation. What I'm saying? People talked about they had, whatever kind of issues there, management wise. Well, who cares with that? You can't deny the fact that the State Department, the government, has made a big push to silence any dissenting voice in any Russian-like outlet. You know what I'm saying? They don't care. And they're going to go take it a step further now. You know why? Because there was no pushback for this. Why is there going to be pushback for that, fam? Nobody cried when it came to Julian Assange. They didn't get in the streets, right? Too late now. What are you going to do now? Now it's too late because they'll be coming for you. This needs to stop right now. We want to fight for each other. We fight for freedom of speech, freedom of the press. That's how we fight for each other.
And they're fighting. They're going to make an example out of Julian. He's extremely close to being extradited for that decision to happen. And once that happens, all bets are off in terms of any sort of free speech. And this is why we're going to get into the second part of the section, fam, because this is the third time in a row that the New York Times, the United States of the New York Times, has posted this article about Tucker Carlson. And the thing is, although that they're purging and they're doing all the censorship, a lot of people now are starting to push back and realize, oh shit, now it might be too late. You're right. But people are starting to really take notice that this is happening. You can see it by the ratios and, the social media responses to these hacks, is their State Department hacks. So the New York Times put out another article against Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson weaponizes viewers' fears to create what may be the most racist show in the history of cable news. Once again, how dare you talk about racism when you're whitewashing Nazis in Ukraine? Our examination shows how intertwined his rise has been with the transformation of Fox News and U.S. conservatism. Some takeaways. And so I'm going to go over some of the things very briefly. There's just two things I'm going to go over because it's a stupid article. But again, this is the New York Times that's now completely ignoring the fact that we're funding Nazis in Ukraine. And we did that for 8 years. And so this is how they started out. I mean, this is great, just like fear mongering. Night after night on Fox, Tucker Carlson weaponizes his viewers' fears and grievances to create what may be the most racist show in the history of cable news. It is also, by some measures, the most successful. With singular influence reaching out far beyond Fox and the viewers who tune into his show, Mr. Carlson has filled the vacuum left by Donald J. Trump, championing the former president's most ardent followers and some of their most extreme views. As fervently as he has raced to the defense of the January 6 rioters, so has he sown doubt and suspicion around immigrants, Black Lives Matter protesters, and COVID-19 vaccines. A New York Times examination of Mr. Carlson's career, including interviews with dozens of friends, former colleagues, and an analysis of more than 1,100 episodes of his Fox program, shows how he has grown increasingly sympathetic to the nativist currents coursing through U.S. politics and how intertwined his rise has been with the transformations of his network and of American conservatism. So, first of all, notice how they use Black Lives Matter, they use January 6th, and then immigrants. They tokenize them immigrants. They tokenize the Black Lives Matter protest. They've co-opted the whole thing. They talk about January 6th as if it was still like this big deal. And then, of course, COVID-19 vaccines. Tucker Carlson isn't my favorite person in the world, but Tucker Carlson has the most leftist, anti-imperialist voices on his show than any of these other CNN hacks. In fact, they don't invite any of us on there. Tucker Carlson has invited, even Caleb Maupin has invited a bunch of people on his show. Our friend Andrew from Action for Assange got to speak about Julian Assange. He has Jimmy Dore on, Max Blumenthal, Anya Parampel. I mean, it just goes. Aaron Mate, I think, was on there. But and these people say, oh, these Russian assets, these alt left, they go on Tucker Carlson. But when Bernie Sanders was on Tucker Carlson, he was attacked too. So why is it, Dr. Cornel West was on Tucker Carlson? This is absolutely just an attack, not on Tucker Carlson, but on any sort of dissent. And they use Tucker Carlson because he is this very passionate, and he does say things that poke the bear at liberals. So they use this sort of dislike, an image of Tucker Carlson, to really attack everybody else. And that's what's happening here. And if you don't see that, that is exactly what's happening. And I don't care if you like Tucker Carlson or not. That's irrelevant. It is that he's being weaponized to censor, to crash and stop dissent of anything, any questioning that you have about the current narrative. No more, because now you're a right-winger like Tucker Carlson. And that's the intent of this.
Let's be honest, fam. It's because he's the highest rated show out there, right? He's got so many more viewers. I think you take the top 3 MSNBC shows right now, and they don't have the viewers now that Tucker Carlson has. It's something ridiculous. He's just blowing them out of the water. And you want to have this continuous team sports mentality out there, right? You know what I'm saying? In that article, they mentioned the January 6th stuff, but they also talk about conservatives. They said the word conservative, inside that article and stuff, oh, that's conservatives. They're bad. Your neighbor who's a Trump person, he's a racist for supporting him. They're bad. That's who your enemy is. It's your neighbor. 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 It's all just tribal literature right here. And it's designed to do one thing: keep you, consumed and looking at your neighbor and not the oligarchy upstairs. And that's why they're choosing Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson has the biggest conservative audience. More people watch Tucker than anything else. And let's not also forget, fam, RT was taken off of DirecTV, right? So was OAN, right? So, I mean, this whole thing is just ridiculous. The complete fleecing of information and silencing people. And you hit it on the nose. They've opened up Pandora's shit box now, and even worse times are coming. It's kind of crazy that they even mentioned January 6th in this whole thing. It's like they're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And they're almost desperate when you read this. You know what I'm saying? It seems, I sense a little desperation that some people might be calling bullshit. And I think they know it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's what's happening, is more people are seeing this. And they continue in this article, right? Years of talking points from the far right fringe. They have labeled many of us like the left, the fringe left. They get along with the far right, the fringe right. And that they use these talking points and these words to smear and to discredit anything we say. So if they can tie us that are, on the left to anything that the right says, we're automatically smeared. You saw the piece by the Daily Beast where they went after literally everybody. And, they went after Kim before that. They've gone after Gonzalo. They've gone after everybody and all of the political spectrum, because none of these people are in the same type of political spectrum. It doesn't matter, because what they do is they weaponize the far right. They use the far right to say, oh, you are like the far right. So that way anything you say can be discounted. And it started, of course, with Trump derangement syndrome, but the elections was a huge point of it. Still, we have people to this day, people that I know, still refuse to even acknowledge anything about the election, the 2020 election. They still don't get what happened, right? They still think that we live in a democracy and that we have fair elections. We don't. We don't at all. Right. Yeah, I know. But it's just,
Sorry. I know it's ridiculous. And fam, I hate to say anything.
No, I know, but I didn't
we're in
say
this
anything.
world, right? Like, it's nuts that we're even in this. We have to think about that you can't say what fam just said right over there, that you might get punished for it financially.
They can't question anything. They refuse to question it on the left because they're afraid of being tied to the right, because a bunch of Trumpers were questioning the election, right? But when it was Bernie Sanders, they were like, oh, Bernie Sanders got cheated, because that was just acceptable because they were on the left. No, we don't have fair elections, in general. And like we talk about this, we investigate this in other countries. And so they say last spring, Mr. Carlson caused an uproar when he prompted on air the notion of the Great Replacement, a racist conspiracy theory once relegated to the far-right fringe. The Western elites are importing obedient immigrant voters to disempower the native-born. The Anti-Defamation League called for his firing, noting that such thinking had helped fuel a string of terrorists. I'm sorry?
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, fam.
Okay.
Slide in there.
Yeah, so they talked about the Great Replacement. So what's been happening is that the right has had this Great Replacement theory that was, talking about using immigrant voters to get rid of the the American vote, which is one thing. But what happened is that the liberal newspapers and the liberal media started equating the Great Replacement with the Great Reset, which is, it's two different things, but they started calling it the same thing. When we talk about the Great Reset, we're not talking about immigrant voters coming in and voting for American citizens, because that doesn't happen, guys. That doesn't happen. That is a stupid thing. That doesn't happen. But what they do,
I was going to say, because we live places where a lot of immigrants were. And we know for a fact, right, fam, that they don't go and vote. They're in the shadows. Immigrants are in the shadows. They stay in the shadows. They're afraid to come out. They wouldn't do something as stupid, not enough to even remotely turn an election. And I just think it's an important point to go and vote illegally. Go ahead, fam. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so they've been using this whole thing and equating it to the Great Reset. So when people talk about the Great Reset, some of these morons think it's the same thing as a Great Replacement, and it's not. The Great Reset is, what we're talking about, the World Economic Forum going into this global surveillance state, which is literally what's happening right now, having the government of these entities, mainly from the West, but also trying to go into the East, trying to have full control of what you see, what you hear, where the Ministry of Truth. All of this is happening on the heels of the Ministry of Truth creation by the Department of Homeland Security. So that's what we're talking about. That has nothing to do with what these people talk about. But of course, they use the same type of tactics to make people think that that's what we mean, and so that they're saying, "Oh, you're far left fringe or whatever," and that's where we're at.
Left
and yeah, or it's insane. So this is the kind of thing that the New York Times is focused on, because they're part of the State Department narrative. They're allowed to make things up. They're allowed to call Tucker all the things they call him. They're allowed to call us all the things. You have the Daily Beast, you have the Business Insider who wrote that article. I mean, they're allowed to say that you might have ties to Putin, that you might have ties to Assad. You might but if we say something that these people have ties to the CIA, oh, you're just saying everybody has ties to the CIA. No, when it's a fact that most anchors have ties to covert agencies, CNN, MSNBC, two of the ones that have the most ties to the security state apparatus. And that is a fact. You can go and research that yourself. There's nothing factual about that, but this is what they do. They try to smear. And again, you don't have to like Tucker Carlson to look at this piece and say, that's a smear piece. And they're trying to turn people against, conservatives. And it's not about conservatives being conservative or you agreeing with conservatives. It is about using that to sow discord between us. And as Pasta said, to completely direct the blame not at them but at the other person, your neighbor, your friend, whoever is your enemy, the enemy they can create for you. So I thought that was gross of what's happening. And along with that, fam, is this idea of Julian Assange, right? Julian Assange is facing 175 years in prison for exposing U.S. war crimes. They're trying to dismiss the fact that he was a journalist. They're trying to say he wasn't a journalist. They're trying to say that he hacked. They're trying to say that he was un-American. And this is where you have a bunch of people both on the left and right, like that are, pro-war and don't think that there's anything wrong with the current status quo, fall right in line together. So the White House had their White House Correspondents' Dinner recently, where, we're not going to be invited to. In fact, nobody that is worth a damn, that's an actual journalist or a real truth-telling media personality should ever be proud to attend this event. If you attend this event, you're a hack. And the reason I say that so assuredly is because in order to attend this event, they know exactly who they're inviting in, because these are all narrative managers for the State Department's talking points. And this is one of them, Trevor Noah, who came in, and he came in as somebody that was like, oh, he's this progressive, and look, he's actually criticizing the government, and he's this, he's actually pushing back against Biden and against the status quo. No, he's not, because what's been happening is that they've co-opted the messages of criticism to allow for non-threatening critiques. So that's how they do it. And so they allow people like Noah to say critiques that are of no threat at all to the status quo. And they become the narrative managers because they can say these things. And they are looked at as, ooh, look at them pushing back. Look, he's a little bit far left, blah, blah, blah. But really, they're not threatening to anything. They're just literally co-opting the language and using it to continue the narrative and to crush any sort of dissent as fringe, because they're the ones that are allowed to criticize. And it's really nothing. And I don't know if you want to say anything before we play the video.
You want to know what Steve calls him now?
What?
Cuckweed.
I don't get it.
Do you know who buckwheat is?
No.
All right. We're old, Oz. We're freaking old. But when you see who it is, and then you'll get it eventually. So I'm like, Steve, you had to go there, didn't you? But you know Steve. So you want to roll it? Because it's gonna, I know you've listened. It doesn't make a difference. You can listen to this 10 times. Even on the 10th time, you'll be just as pissed off as you were in the first time you listened to it. That's how disgusting this shit is. The fact that this guy has the nerve to say the things he says. And he's far from any type of progressive. He's far from pointing out any, for being any agitator. To act like he is. This here, nothing but theater. Nothing but theater. Did you see a lot of people on Twitter, fam, kind of like bragging about this and putting it?
Yep.
Oh my God, Trevor Noah. Did you? I mean,
no, he's perfect. He's the young African American, progressive. And this again, they're weaponizing. They're co-opting the actual, anti-establishment, anti-imperialist message. And they're weaponizing it against us. And that's what you have to know. It's not about opposing you, because opposing you is too obvious. They have to co-opt your language, pretty much become you, but a non-threatening version of you. And then they get to say this, which is absolutely disgusting. Let's just play it.
And so as we sit in this room tonight, people, I really hope you all remember what the real purpose of this evening is. Yes, it's fun. Yes, we dress nice. Yes, the people eat, they drink, we have fun. But the reason we're here is to honor and celebrate the Fourth Estate and what you stand for. What you stand for. An additional check and balance that holds power to account and gives voice to those who otherwise wouldn't have one. And like, I'm not just talking about like CNN or Fox or any of the other major organizations. I'm talking about everyone, the young journalists we saw today, intrepid journalists who aren't even in this room in Flint, Michigan, or that daring reporter at the Des Moines Register, or the unflinching local newscaster in El Paso, Texas. Every single one of you, whether you like it or not, is a bastion of democracy. And if you ever begin to doubt your responsibilities, if you ever begin to doubt how meaningful it is, look no further than what's happening in Ukraine. Look at what's happening there. Journalists are risking and even losing their lives to show the world what's really happening. You realize how amazing it is. Like, in America, you have the right to seek the truth and speak the truth, even if it makes people in power uncomfortable, even if it makes your viewers or your readers uncomfortable. You understand how amazing that is?
Go outside your bubble, Trevor, and you can get a clue of what's going on. And God damn it, the fact that you're saying all this stuff like we have all these freedoms while Julian Assange is sitting in a prison cell.
I mean,
Mine?
it's just,
Yeah, sorry.
okay. Well, I just think it's fucking disgusting that this guy has the audacity, and he damn well knows. It's not like he's an idiot. He knows. He knows
He's doing his part.
that
doing his job.
this is. I'm sorry. What?
I said he was doing his part. He's doing his job. I'm hearing a little cutting out. Oz, what is that? Is that me or? Okay. I see what you're. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's disgusting that this guy is doing this, as you said, because Julian Assange is in prison. And by the way, if we had any sort of freedom in the United States, we wouldn't have to create a Ministry of Truth, or a disinformation governance board that is literally the copy pasting of Orwell's 1984 Ministry of Truth. Literally, you wouldn't have any sort of need to do that if we lived in a free country, in a free press. And this is what irritates me about both ends of the political spectrum. They still have this idea that we have a democracy or we have freedom. We don't have any of that. What you have is an illusion of choice, an illusion of democracy, an illusion of freedom. And people like Trevor Noah are there because they're influencers who are set to continue this propaganda machine that to give people this appearance that we have some sort of democracy, to make people feel good about themselves, because we live in a country full of fucking narcissists who literally you just want to pat themselves on the back and say, oh, look, we put up a young African-American man, and look how progressive he is, and look how he can criticize Biden, and Biden can laugh, and they can have this exchange. Fuck the U.S., the fact that the United States murdered, allowed for the murdering of journalists in West Asia. The United States doesn't care that journalists are disappearing in Ukraine, that we had a missing Gonzalo Lira, who was literally the only reason he's alive is because so many people spoke out, and all of this happened, and you have people disappearing every day by Nazis that the US is funding. So yes, look at Ukraine. Look at how many people are risking their lives to report the truth and being smeared as Russian assets and complete and total Putin bots for telling the truth. And look at how every single anti-establishment or Russian or what they call pro-Russian media is labeled as Russia state-affiliated media, and how RT was literally shut down. RT America was literally taken off DirecTV and taken off pretty much any sort of network that you could view it in, completely taken off YouTube, and you can't even watch it anywhere in the West because the United States is trying to exert international jurisdiction over the free press. And look how PayPal is taking people's accounts down and is able to take their money. And look how Canada was able to go and stop people and criminalize them for donating to a bunch of anti-mandate truckers who were protesting these draconian rules. I don't understand how you can fathom that we live in a free society or a democracy when you have all this happening. And so the only thing I can conclude is this guy is a State Department hack, and you have to be a hack to be accepted into the status quo, to be accepted into the White House corresponding dinner and continue this facade. It is absolutely disgusting that is Julian Assange. These people have never said a goddamn word about Julian Assange, not once. And right now he's about to be extradited for what? For publishing U.S. crimes, Western crimes, and having the audacity to actually say, hey, this is what your government is doing. This is how they lied to you. Publish documents, completely documents that are just documents. There's no opinion, nothing on it. So you can't question that. WikiLeaks has never had to retract a story. Yet you have these literal pundits that are just hacks for the State Department, and they're there and they're able to gloat to themselves because he's gloating. Oh, see, look how I can say this and that, and I'm fine. That's why you're fine, because you're not a threat to the status quo at all, because you're a complete and total extension of and a useful idiot for the current regime. And that's what it is. Our friends are getting taken off the internet. They're being censored. We can't even freely express ourselves. And this asshole has the audacity to gloat about how free we are when we're in the darkest time for journalism right now. I mean, it just doesn't get any more enraging than that to me. Honestly.
Somebody, Bill Bradley, I think he put in the YouTube chat, like 1984 was supposed to be a warning, not a goddamn guidebook, for crying out loud. And that's where we're living right now. They're memory holding everything, and everything they just changed. They propagandized. You know, he even went into the paint when it came to Russia. But by the way, before we get to this next slide over here that has this next picture, fam, I don't know if you heard any of Biden's speech. Did you? Biden even talked about the way that everybody had to be vaxxed and boosted before they had to be in there. So even the Fox News reporters are they're vaxxed and boosted too. So they're using all this propaganda and messages right there as well. You know what I'm saying? It's just full on, full court press propaganda to the gills, 1984 style, fams.
Disgusting.
It is terrible. And I don't know how long it's going to be.
They can all go to hell.
The American people are asleep. This is what George Carlin said. They call it the American dream, because you got to be asleep, right? To see it, to get it, whatnot.
Yeah.
Enough is enough. Wake up, people. You know, wake up.
So just going right along with the stupidity of this White House Correspondents' Dinner, here is Anthony Fauci, maskless with his friend. And then you have, of course, you can see in the crowd, they're all maskless except the help. The help is masked, because the help, ooh, they're dirty, ooh. But we're all vaxxed and boosted, so, but let's just make the help, vaxxed and masked. I mean, it's disgusting. It's the same thing why I was so pissed at the AOC thing when they were carrying her dress train. Because they were masked and she wasn't. Oh, because they're all masked or vaxxed and boosted. Okay, so why mask the help? Like what? Well, that just goes to show you guys this whole thing is a fucking elitist joke. This whole thing. And here we have Mehdi Hassan, the other hack, who, by the way, is cheered constantly by a lot of these progressives, right? By a lot of these Bernie progressives that are still around. They love him. They're like, oh, yay, one of us made it into MSNBC, and he still gets to tell the truth. No, he doesn't. He's regurgitated every single State Department talking point about everything, from Syria to what's happening in Ukraine, to the McCarthyist attacks on Russia, to Russiagate, to the Trump derangement syndrome, to the January 6th attacks, to the election, to the pandemic, all of that. And every single point, he has been regurgitating propaganda. So sorry, he's not, any sort of agitator, any sort of anti-establishment fighter or revolutionary. He's a complete and total hack. And again, this is why he's at the dinner. And look what he writes. He wrote, "Shot. How I want to go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner tonight. Chaser, how I am going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner tonight. This is the epitome of virtue signaling. This is nauseating. This is the kind of bullshit that liberalism has descended into. Oh, we're gonna virtue signal about how I'm so responsible and I care about everybody around me. I'm gonna put on my mask,
fam.
and then I'm gonna make a post about it so everybody can see how great I am. This is narcissism. This is mental illness right here.
Yeah.
Like I swear to God, like this is not how a normal human would function. You do not get to gloat about wearing a mask in an event where supposedly everybody is double vaxxed and boosted, and then virtue signal about wearing your mask because now you're above everybody because you want to show how great you are and how amazing and caring you are for everybody, in spite of the whole narrative being literally decimated, especially as days go by. More and more the things that were said were, were called conspiracy or actually admittedly true. And so now you look like a total clown. And I mean, I don't know, fam. Like this is just.
I'm glad really you hit the narcissism thing because, like you said, this is all about the narcissism. The CIA or the intelligence apparatus, they understood how to go after people, right? You know what I'm saying? The psychological op that they got going on, really, they find these like inner narcissistic people who think they're more virtuous than everybody else. When they support warmongers, child pedophiles, and just virtue signalers across the board. Like you said, I'm doing my part. How I want to go, how I am going. I made a tweet about that, fam, and I explained to everybody what payaso means, and in English, it means Medi. That's exactly what it means.
I mean, and this guy, and he was retweeting all the things about Trevor Noah too, which is, of course, I mean, par in line with the whole thing. But these are the kind of hacks that are supposed to be the progressives.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why I don't call myself a progressive anymore. I mean, this is I want none of that. None of that. And tell all of this to all the people that have had issues with the boop boop. Tell all of this to Julian Assange. Tell all of this to all the journalists that are in prison. All the political activists are in prison right now for daring to say something that didn't go with the State Department. All the people that have been murdered. Like, please.
Super Ray time.
Yeah.
Deborah Wilson, love the couch. Love you, Deborah Wilson. It's always appreciated over here. Black in the Empire. What's up, Daryl? How you been, babe? Love you, miss you, all that good shit. Fee and I got your back. Trevor Noah is full of shit, fam. Says Black in the Empire. Daryl.
Love you, Daryl.
Love you, Daryl. So, fam, as we're kind of rolling in, this is perfect. Subway. It's a perfect way segue into the next subject because the next topic, because it is kind of like crazy. More about the censorship, what's going on. We talked about this, the correspondence meal, the freedom of speech. How many people are going to say, oh my God, did you see Trevor Noah's speech, fam? It was amazeballs. It was so great. Well, the next topic is titled, Obama is the boss. Get rid of the disinformation campaign. And that's what's going on right now. Obama went and spoke in Stanford not too long ago. And this is how you can tell he's the boss. He's still pulling strings from behind the scenes, and I got some speeches here, fam. I don't know. I want you to judge. You tell me which one pisses you off more, Obama or Trevor Noah. So let's go to slide 29. Let's jump right into it, fam, and pay attention to the way he weaponizes like white supremacy as a way to manufacture consent for censorship. Go ahead, As.
One of the biggest impediments to doing all of this. Indeed, one of the biggest reasons for democracy's weakening is the profound change that's taken place in how we communicate and consume information. For more and more of us, search and social media platforms aren't just our window into the internet, they serve as our primary source of news and information. No one tells us that the window is blurred, subject to unseen distortions and subtle manipulations. All we see is a constant feed of content where useful, factual information and happy diversions and cat videos flow alongside lies, conspiracy theories, junk science, quackery, white supremacists, racist tracks, misogynist screeds. And over time, we lose our capacity
Joe Biden is
to
president.
distinguish between fact, opinion, and wholesale fiction.
Sam, don't ever sleep on Barry O. Don't ever sleep on Barry O. Don't you like the way it's everything's blurred out there, and it's when you beside your cat videos, and you get misogynist, white supremacy, whatnot, everything. Everybody kind of equates this whole problem like a freedom of speech, right? Like freedom of speech is not acceptable because you don't have a right to give hate speech. They're hiding behind this hate speech and stuff like that. And once again, if they tickle the fancy of the progressives to say that, hey, listen, if you're for this speech, then you're for white supremacy, you're for misogyny, you're for racism and stuff. Therefore, we have to silence it. And they manufacture consent without any nuance whatsoever to say, let's start removing these people, get rid of them. And that's where we're at today, into this 1984 mentality. And the people who are supposed to stand for freedom of speech are the actual ones who are cheering on the censorship. I mean, we say this all the time, but you can see what Barry's doing over here. Barry O, he's kind of twisting things, fam, so you'll go along with the whole censorship. And he does it well. And you can tell he's pulling the strings. This guy is still the freaking boss.
You have the guy that took us from 2 to 7 wars that literally created, with Hillary Clinton at the helm, right? A slave trade in Libya. Mm-hmm. You have the guy. How many Muslim people, how many indigenous people to West Asia died under his presidency? How white supremacist does that get? And then, of course, Joe Biden was his vice president, and now Joe Biden is the president. Mm-hmm. The guy who was okay with segregation, who wrote the 1994 crime bill, the Patriot Act. We're talking about Joe Biden, and they have the audacity to continue weaponizing people of color for votes and using them to sow the whole white supremacy, as we are literally funding Nazis in Ukraine. And I'm not going to stop saying that the United States is funding Nazis in Ukraine while talking about white supremacy. Please.
Yeah, and it was Barry O's cabinet and Barry O's presidency that also funded these Nazis in the Ukraine. Don't make no mistake about it.
And built the cages.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And fam, now that Barry O has kind of pointed out we got a problem, hate speech, misogyny, white supremacy, now we got to come up with the next part. Who's going to do the censorship? Well, let's roll the clip and I'll tell you right here. Never sleep on Barry O.
Tech platforms need to accept that they play a unique role in how we as a people and people around the world are consuming information, and that their decisions have an impact on every aspect of society. With that power comes accountability. And in democracies like ours, at least, the need for some democratic oversight.
Democracies.
They could do more.
You had to quote Spider-Man?
Yeah. Did that run the right times? How long was that one supposed to run for? I thought I had 147 to 342 on that one. No? Okay. Maybe I put the wrong times in there. He did talk about, like, at one point he says Silicon Valley could do more and they should do more. And once again, alluding to who's going to decide on what should be censored and what should be okay, what is truth and what is disinformation. And at the end of the day, we sure as hell don't want Silicon Valley doing that, nor do we want the government doing that. And that's what he's implying in this particular situation and stuff. At the end of the day, we've said it before, it's not for the government, it's not for some schmuck in Silicon Valley, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, or anybody to decide what is the truth and what is false. Elon Musk now coming, whatnot. It's up to you, the people. If they're not inciting violence right now, you know what I'm saying, like that. And to be honest with you, according to the letter of the law, fam, when some of these people talk about Russia, they're inciting violence. They should be looked at about what they're doing. Some of these assholes.
That's exactly what they use.
Right?
That's what they use to take away their PayPal.
Yeah.
That it's it's not safe. That they like a safe community, so they you're unsafe now. You're marked as being unsafe.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, I mean, he's just
Yeah.
God.
Well,
He's
it's
just,
like he does the setup. We have a problem. What's going on? White misogyny, misogynistic, white supremacy, white misogyny. You know what I'm saying? They like combine them together. We have
yes.
all these people. We got to shut these people up. Now who's going to do it? All right, now the government, let's manufacture consent. You got to let us do it. You acknowledge there's a problem with us. We know this. We see this out there. Let us take care of it. Big Brother's here to protect you, fam. And then the final part is that I can hear the song, whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? Roll the clip. Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on?
As citizens, we have to take it upon ourselves to become better consumers of news. Looking at sources, thinking before we share, and teaching our kids to become critical thinkers who know how to evaluate sources and separate opinion from fact. TV is a tool. The internet is a tool. Social media is a tool. At the end of the day, tools don't control us. We control them, and we can remake them. It's up to each of us to decide what we value, and then use the tools we've been given to advance those values. And I believe we should use every tool at our disposal to secure our greatest gift. A government of, by, for the people, for generations to come. And I hope you agree with me, and I look forward to you joining in the work. Thank you very much, everybody.
Fam, I look forward to you joining, right? You know what I'm saying? Where are your values? We're going to judge what team you're on by your values. Are you with Barry O? Then come along. And when we do, we're going to now you've now manufactured consent for we can do whatever we need to do to make things right, to be the good American, virtue signaling, standing up for everybody, speaking for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like that. That's what we got. That's what you get from Barry O, fam.
A government by corporations
Yes.
for the 1% predator class and the military industrial complex. That's what he should have said. Isn't it sad that he gets to say this to a Stanford class where these people are paying, high money, or they're supposed to be some of the smartest people? And this is what I always think of, like, if going back to academia, what am I going to learn from these people? What sort of thing can I learn from professors who are brainwashed, from people like invited speakers like Barack Obama, who are complete and total narrative managers, who are complete and total liars and war criminals and warmongers? This is the kind of dialogue that these young people are getting before they go out into the world. It's just brainwashing. They're being brainwashed and propagandized. And I have a question for you, Pasta, by the way.
Sure.
Is what's happening, what happened with Elon Musk? Elon Musk bought Twitter. As soon as Elon Musk bought Twitter, the Department of Homeland Security created the Disinformation Governance Board.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as that happened, people started getting their PayPal accounts attacked. So is the Elon Musk thing, was it a distraction or an excuse to allow him to do that, to use that as an excuse to be able to say, oh, well, now we need further control because Elon Musk controls Twitter, so now we have to really ramp up everything? And that seems to me just too perfect of a chain of
Seems like
events.
theater, right? Because right after he got, now they're manufacturing.
Yeah.
Now it's like all those people who are complaining about Elon Musk taking over Twitter, saying that it's about white supremacy, or it's about,
right.
I'm saying all this bullshit, like he's going to be able to control hate speech. How dare it? Now they came in with more censorship in the back door. And it does seem like, right. Now you've riled up the progressives. I mean, in the RJ paper over the weekend, fam, on Sunday, they had a whole section and it said liberal meltdown, and it showed all these people melting down. So now when you get all these people pissed off and you make a move like this, you've now manufactured consent for them to justify even more censorship, right? So I mean, the CIA or the intelligence apparatus is just like, man, they're throwing bullseyes. They're throwing bullseyes. They know how to split the people. They have the media to do so. Some of us are catching their shit, but everybody needs to wake up and catch their shit. It is divide and conquer on a psychological, mental level like we've never seen before. Never seen before. And, we have to be sharp, because otherwise we continue to do this shit. We're going to, and I really do hope there's some people waking up to this right now. I really hope there is more people who said, you know what, I was wrong. You shouldn't have taken down Alex Jones. I said it was okay, but now we can see the results of what happens when you allow this stuff to happen. Yeah. When you mess with freedom of speech, when you mess with freedom of the press, Julian Assange sitting in jail, this is ridiculous. No, I was wrong. I hope we have a lot of people like that, because, freedom of speech is, you take that away, forget about it. Then everything else starts to crumble behind it. You're going to be you're going to have rulers ruling you at a high level. They're going to be the surveillance state. They're going to track you everywhere. You're going to have to be the perfect model citizen according to what they want. 1984, like you said, it was supposed to be a warning, not a hand guide. And it's turning into a hand guide right now. You ready for the rest of the section?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a view from DC, the Declaration of the Future of the Internet, Financial Privacy, and More. This is something that's also come into play. This really has a lot to do with what Obama was saying. Hillary Clinton was talking about this about a month ago and two as well, as we get into the censorship. What's going on is they've kind of created this global body on which they want to, policy position in which they want to monitor the internet. I think it's a blueprint, and the United States and the West telling other countries how to behave, how to act, whatnot, because there's 60 countries that have now signed on to this declaration for the future of the internet. Let's take a look. Slide 33. This week, seemingly every technology policy hot take focused on one billionaire's pending taking over a bird-themed social site, fam. You know who that is. It is hard not to notice a certain parallel between the underlying debate about preserving free speech while combating disinformation and the ongoing evolution of data practices. Does the law serve as a floor or a ceiling in guiding corporate policies and practice? Axios has a helpful breakdown of Twitter's current content policies that go beyond legal compliance. Will such protections be enshrined in law in the U.S. or be left to individual platforms to implement? It's a similar question we ask about data protection practices, though the eventual answers may diverge. And that's how the article opens up, fam. And it gives a breakdown of some of the important points, the lying points and whatnot. But as you can see, it's like they're still kind of like, they put out these simple truths, right? Now they're talking about, okay, we're talking about data collection right here. Nobody's really talking about this anymore. The fact that, all these companies are mining our data, keeping it, storing it. They're outsourcing it, that it's mined and kept. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's talking about that anymore. And they put that simple truth out there, and then it's okay. You know what I'm saying? So that's where they're at, because they've moved the Overton window when it comes to speech or when it comes to the internet, fam. And they're at a point right now where they can acknowledge all these things. Yeah, we do a lot of censoring. We do take a lot of down, but there's disinformation, and we have to justify some of it being taken down. And that's what this is going to be. This is going to be a precedent across the board on how you stop any dissenting voices that will mess not only with the West power, but the West global governance power that they want to obtain. And this is it right here. So many areas it's peeking in its dirty head with the WHO when it comes to maybe pandemics for a global response and a global governance. And now in the internet, they're going to be talking about a global governance as we move forward. There are... Please go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's just getting worse, and they're using this guise of protection, of a protection for the greater good. Obama just talked about the sources, right? Like, oh, check your sources. But what is a good source? The New York Times, the Washington Post, the newspapers and news media that lied us into wars on false premises, that continuously lie and never have to show accountability for anything. That's what is considered reliable sources.
The ones they tell you are good sources, fam, the corporate ones. Slide 34. I'm going to just 3 bullet points about this particular declaration for the future internet. Number one, the U.S. led 60 other countries in endorsing the declaration for the future of the internet. As the White House fact sheet explains the declaration reaffirms a shared commitment to the internet in an open, free, global, reliable, and secure. The launch ceremony included remarks from the presidents of Argentina, as well as Australia, Canada, Japan, UK, European Commission, Jamaica, Marshall Islands, New Zealand, and Colombia. No remarks were quite so timely as to those as Fedorov, Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation, who reminded listeners that ensuring free access to information is a core antidote to Russia's war efforts. Free access to information and new technologies will be the bedrock for future development and the internet based on principles of liberty and democracy. Funny, isn't it, fam? Isn't it about like, oh, it's all about combating Russia's information, because Russia and China aren't part of this declaration for the future of the internet, fam. Would you believe that? Russia and China, not part of it, but yet they're talking about free access to information, and yet they are censoring and taking down RT America, the PayPal thing. I mean, are they sniffing glue? And once again, the people who will buy along with this are the ones who think they're more virtuous. Yeah, those people deserve to get taken down. They're spreading lies. Freedom of speech doesn't give them the right to spread lies, fam.
Right.
35. Here's another one. This is preparing for an era of big tech and big data in banking. So not only is it about big tech, you know what I'm saying? Like in the data, the information they store and whatnot, they're going to move you into central currencies, right? Like the digital currencies are the future. It's something we have to pay attention to. But once again, that preparing for an era of big tech and big data in banking. You know what I'm saying? They're merging the banking system. They're all going together. Oh my God. And number 36, I just want to read.
Oh, wait, Costa, before you go, read that part. It says currently the United States is lurching towards a consolidated market structure where finance and commerce commingle, fueled by uncontrolled flows of consumer data. I mean, they're telling you that's what's happening, and that's what we've been talking about with this global surveillance state, where you're going to have digital consolidation under a central currency, and you're going to have like the merger, of course, more mergers of corporate with these the entities that regulate speech. So you're going to have a complete and total merger of everything, and you're not going to have a say as to what you think is correct or not. They're going to choose for you.
Yeah, and the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau is currently studying these issues as the first part of our inquiry into big tech's entry into consumer payments in the United States. So it's back, and the Federal Trade Commission, number 36 is the last one. During the monthly open meeting, the FTC, acting deputy director for the Bureau of Consumer Protection, Audrey Austin, gave an engaging presentation on the loss of authority to collect monetary redress from consumers due to the Supreme Court's AMG capital management decision last year. While demonstrating the impact this loss has had on the FTC's work, Austin also explained the alternative tools the agency is using to hold businesses accountable. Code. All commissioners added remarks agreeing that this is an important tool for delivering direct redress to customers should be returned to the FTC through legislative action. So they're pretty much talking about the FTC being able to go back there, and they had an issue where they couldn't seize monetary gains, whatnot. Now they want that authority back to make sure that they can have more power, the Federal Trade Commission. So that's something else that's on the dock for this declaration for the future of the internet. And that's what we have to look forward to. This is all happening at the same time when Obama's doing these speeches. You have the disinformation part of the Department of Homeland Security coming out now. This is all happening at the same time, ladies and gentlemen. So it's just acceleration on a mass scale.
Yeah. And so what happened is that Alejandro Mayorkas, the hack for the DHS, put out this, he was complaining about misinformation being spread about the disinformation governance report. So he's essentially complaining about the misinformation being disinformation, or the disinformation having misinformation. If you want to wrap your mind around that. So Mayorkas cites misinformation about Homeland Security's disinformation board. And this is not a joke. He, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Sunday defended the department's new disinformation board amid pushback from conservatives. There you go again. It's only conservatives pushing back, right? It's not anybody else, just conservatives who say the effort is Orwellian. It works to ensure that the way in which we address threats, the connectivity between threats and acts of violence are addressed without infringing on free speech, protecting civil rights and civil liberties, the right of privacy, Mayorkas told CNN's Dana Bash on State of the Union. How in the hell is this is not infringing on free speech? In fact, we're seeing infringements on free speech left and right. We just got done with the whole fucking segment telling you guys how free speech is being infringed upon everywhere, not just through censorship, but through targeting people's monetary gains, the ability for you, the viewer, to choose who to support and who to fund, and what to watch and what to look at. That's another form of censorship. It's not just, oh, we're not going to show this. It's, oh, we're going to make it impossible for you to support this, so we cut them off eventually, so they stop. So that way you're forced to watch mainstream media. That's what's happening. And with this information governance board, it's going to do that on steroids, because everything that strays away from the current narrative is going to be labeled misinformation. So that is infringing on your civil liberties. It is infringing on your civil rights. That has been happening, and this is just going to take it to another level. So he's totally lying right there. And he said, we probably could have done a better job of communicating what it does and does not do. The criticisms of the board are precisely the opposite of what this small working group within the Department of Homeland Security will do. So now it's a small working group. It's not a big group. It's just a little tiny group. He clarified that the board is an internal working group that will gather best practices to address the disinformation threat from foreign state adversaries and cartels and communicate those best practices to the operators. He added that the board does not have operational authority and will not monitor American citizens. Do you know who also said that they wouldn't monitor American citizens? The NSA. You know what they did? They monitored American citizens.
Yeah.
So, seriously? Come on.
Yeah. That's where we're at, fam. That's where we're at. And it's only going to get worse. Like you said, dark days are coming. And it's a form of acceleration. They're trying to do this, globally. So, yeah. Was that Barry O sleeping over there? Don't sleep on Barry O, fam. Do not sleep on Barry O. Some Super Rays? I think we read them all. Let's check it out. Guys, this is the time right now. You want to get on over to Rockfin. We're going to go to Rockfin only shortly, because we're going to talk about something that you can't talk about on YouTube. You know how they get. And as you know, the Convo Couch, we do our election thing. So just show them the title to the next section, and then we're going to also talk about something real quick. Got it up. 2,000 Mules shows Republicans are stuck on the who and not the what. If you don't know what 2,000 Mules are, it's a movie that comes out today. It's been Dinesh D'Souza, who's a conservative filmmaker, produced a movie that studied a lot of the drop boxes and what happened with the drop boxes during the 2020 election. And I'm going to watch it tonight, but there's already some releases of some of the videos that came out. Our good friends Kelly Lane shared it with us from Liz Harrington, who's in Arizona. So this is going to be a really fun section. If you're into elections, come over to Rockfin. Now, being the fact that we always like to talk about elections here at home, the Convo Couch likes to get out and talk about elections abroad. We went to Nicaragua just recently, and we went to Honduras. We were able to observe their elections. Fam, do you want to say why it's important for us to go and check out these other elections? Not so much just Colombia in this case, which we're going to talk about. Maybe you could talk a little bit about why it's important for Colombia, but in general, overall, if somebody were to ask you, why is it important that you go and observe these elections in Nicaragua and Honduras and Colombia, maybe India, Brazil, why is it important?
Right. So again, you have the legacy media, mainstream media, literally regurgitating the same bullshit narratives about certain countries that they want to vilify and extract resources from and control, essentially. And we saw that when we were firsthand in Nicaragua, where they were trying to lie. You had the New York Times journalists and, propagandists basically saying that the election was unfair, that they couldn't get in, that, you know, they weren't even there to begin with, that people couldn't get in, that people couldn't, that they were closing down polling stations. And you had us on the ground, and you had several other people from, of course, our Sputnik, RT, Kasachan News, you independent journalists from Latin America, all over the world, Mint Press. You had everybody there that was, of course, is getting now targeted, right? And is getting labeled Russian affiliated media or whatever. And we were dismantling those lies on the ground right there, bit by bit. And that's what happened. We were able to do that, and we were able to create press conference together with the other observers, and literally tell the people of not just the media of these countries, but also the media worldwide, why this election was fair, what happened, what could have been better. We were able to really go down the line and talk about the implications of that geopolitically. And we were able to really make those connections and teach people about how our elections could be if we actually had fair elections. And so that is why it's important for us, and it's been important for us to follow these elections. I followed them in Peru. We were all there in Nicaragua and Honduras. We also went to the inauguration in Nicaragua, and we were able to show support of the people for their government, which is something I know that is rare here, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen in other countries. We were also able to network and meet with other journalists who also have similar experiences and viewpoints and live abroad or have other things to share. We were able to work with them and really just dispel any sort of lies. So that's why it's important for us to follow these elections, to make sure that the story that gets told isn't just coming from the Western mainstream narrative of the West that continuously undermines countries in the global South and exerts control. Colombia in particular is one of these countries where the U.S. has a stronghold. The U.S. has the most military bases in Colombia, I think, and they're highly involved there with the narco trafficking government that's been currently protested by so many people. We had on an activist not long ago to come and talk about the uprise against the current government and how they were fighting to have a government that was not corrupt, a government that would stop killing people and killing dissidents. Those are the realities that these people live in that we can't even fathom and imagine here. And so that's why it's so important for us to go there and show that, especially in this election, that is an election, you know, between a better government for Colombia and a U.S. Controlled puppet government for Colombia, essentially, is what we're seeing. And you have it's not like this person that is running for office that's supposed to be the more progressive candidate is Daniel Ortega, but they're definitely talking about the problems in Colombia. And we're gonna continue giving you more information about the specifics about that, but it's essentially important to really bring that out and for us to be there and just watch another election, in particular this election, because it is within a pro-US State Department type of government, might be different than the elections. I think will be entirely different than the elections we're used to. We're told by our friends that these elections are dangerous, that the Colombians are in a very precarious state, that observers before have been deported for observing too much. It's not like a friendly type of, this is going to be, the elections are looking like they're going to be fair. We have, of course, the presence of the United States and the presence of a government that they want to continue controlling. So we also have the presence of crime, a narco government, and it's a completely dangerous situation for us here, actually, to go to Colombia. It's a completely different election than anything we've witnessed. So this is why it's even more important for people like us who know elections and who are going to look at the logistics of elections, not just, based on the political aspect of it and the political analysis of who these parties are and who's going against who, but also about how the election will be conducted. So that's why I think it's important for us to be there and to report on it, because much of the West has been ignoring what's been happening in Colombia. The mainstream media hasn't really talked about it. And I think with what's happening right now in the global South and how there's so much support for Russia and the shift eastward and the shift towards multilateralism and all of that happening, it's important for us to really be in a place that might be not as friendly to the truth and have more control and support by the West, which I think, is why we really should be there more than anything, I think.
Okay, so put it up, Oz. You can right there. Here's the Give, Send, and Go, guys. As we know, you're not going to do the GoFundMe anymore. We saw what happened with the Canadian truckers, so we're going to try a different avenue. This is the Give, Send, and Go, and you can just go to givesendandgo.com / support the Convo Couch. givesendandgo.com / support the Convo Couch. Help us get to Colombia, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to be helping us with every single aspect of the trip, whether it comes to airfare, food, lodging, the whole 9 yards. Our intentions is to go over there and give you the best type of reporting we can. Like Fam said, when we were on the ground in Nicaragua, we were actually kind of like debunking what the New York Times was writing in real time. We were going to poll after poll after poll, and the Ortega government was smart enough to make sure that they had activists spread out throughout the whole country. They wanted to open up this process and show, go ahead, scrutinize, ask us, look what's going on. And it was a sound system, right? Everything from the expediency to vote to, everybody having an ID to go vote, the public tabulation. Same thing in Honduras. It was just amazing. So we're going to get on the ground. We're going to go over there. I think it's also important too, as well, to report back to show other countries keeping the simplicity of what they're doing and the expediency of what they're doing and the transparency of what they're doing. And it's a very great example to say, hey man, if they can do this in Honduras, we can do this at home. This is necessary. And the more we show it, the more countries we show how much better their elections are than ours, as far as the system, expediency, trackable, transparable, the better. Because as we know, fam, when it comes down to it, the way they manufacture consent for regime change, they always say their elections were a pantomime, they were fake. They don't have to talk about the details of whatnot. They don't have to speak to anybody out there. They just can just throw that out there and people digest it and take it as truth. Too many people don't know shit about foreign policy, not only because they don't go out and seek other outside sources of information, because they were also programmed to think that the United States is really out there fighting for democracy and has legitimacy to be the policeman of the world. We say no. That's why we go observe these elections, to show democracy in progress or the lack of it, and to scrutinize every bit of it we can, because that's what we do. We are not biased when it comes to elections. They're either free and fair, transparent elections, or they're got. So guys, go on, jump on in. If you want to be the first to get on there, Give, Send, and Go. Help the Convo Couch get to Colombia to observe their election. Remember, it's at givesendandgo.com / support the Convo Couch. Do it. Help us out. We can use your love right about now. It would be awesome. I put the links in Rockfin and I put the links in YouTube. But now this is that we have to get the time. We have to get out of YouTube right now because we are going to talk about elections, and we can't do that. That's the craziness. Do you have anything else to say?
Real quick. Yeah, so before we go to Rockfin only, the election takes place on May 29th, and that's the first round. So if there is a need to have a second round, there'll be a second round. But if not, I think it's a certain percentage. I think it's 40%. Then if they're less under 40%, then they're going to have a second round. And again, like the candidate that is supposed to be the leftist candidate has claimed that they're being attacked, that they're being persecuted, that this is a dangerous election. And his name is Gustavo Petro, and he has a vice presidential candidate that is of African descent, which is a big deal in Colombia because it's the same things that plague us in terms plague Colombia as well. And of course, the other candidate is center right in terms of the global South, right? In terms of the global South, more in line with the neoliberal agenda. And we'll see, because again, there's a lot of criticism for even the left candidate here, from a lot of the anti-imperialists that we know. But at the same time, it would signal kind of like a shift, kind of like a Chile situation, I would say. Although this candidate is a little bit better seemingly than Gabriel Boric, but it still signals like a bit of a shift in the political space of Colombia. And it'll be nice to really understand like the the experiences thus far of the people who have been living there under this current regime. So just wanted to throw that out there with you, and we'll be trying to get there to bring you the latest news.
We're already on the board, fam. Somebody jumped on in, left $50 right off the gate, guys. Thank you so much. This means a lot, guys. You know we love to do this. We think it's so important. This is our wheelhouse, and we've kind of carved this out. I think I don't want to play team sports again and say, but leftists who go do this, who are anti-imperialist, that can also be very critical of the election systems here at home. There's not a lot of us out there. So you guys are really fighting for, I think, freedom of the press, freedom of the speech, all of it. Really, it means so much right here too as well. I personally, I'm just going to speak for myself here. I think that elections are some of the most important things we can do. Some people will say it's the laziest thing we can do. No, it's the first thing we need to do. Then we have to fight to make sure it's fair, transparent, trackable, and make sure we have fair elections. So thank you to somebody ringing that bell. Once again, go to Give, Send, and Go. It's so hard. GiveSendGo.com/support the Combo Couch. Thank you guys so much. It's awesome. And for the last section, we're going to need you to get over to Rockfin. Going over to Rockfin, leaving YouTube. Come on, guys, now. Jilly Love, put the Lucky Burrito already has it in there. But you guys, put all the links and everything in YouTube right now. Oh, somebody else just gave right now. Oh, thank you so much. Fam, I am such a donkey boomer, right? I don't know. Let me see if I have this thing set up properly. I don't know if I have everybody set up. No, okay. So $10 was given by Black in the Empire. Thank you so much, Daryl. The first donor was anonymous. Thank you so much. I know who you are. It told me on the email who you are. So thank you for giving those donations. Guys, come on. Let's get in there. Let's make this happen. Send me and Fee to Colombia. I promise you I will come back. And let's go report on these elections. Let's go do this. So leaving YouTube in 5, in 4, in 3, in 2, in 1. We are out.